One of the top regrets I hear from my tractor customers who are buying their second or third tractor, or the fourth tractor, whatever, is that they feel like they didn't buy a tractor with enough horsepower. So how important is horsepower? Is that the most important thing on a tractor? No, I don't think so. There's a big difference between horsepower and size, and oftentimes when people say they didn't buy the right amount of horsepower, they mean they didn't buy the right size tractor. And there is a difference. Let's get into it. So when it comes to compact tractors, utility tractors, subcompact tractors, whatever you want to call this size tractor, there is a lot of sizes to choose from and a lot of horsepower ranges. For example, this is a 25 horsepower tractor. That's a 25 horsepower tractor. This is a 25 horsepower tractor. This little guy, 25 horsepower tractor. A bunch of these mowers, 25 horsepower tractors. And this right here, this is a large frame 25 horsepower tractor. So is this tractor that weighs 3,500 pounds going to do the same amount of work as that tractor that weighs 1,500 pounds? No, they're going to do very different work. So let's talk about that. So if we bought this tractor right here, 25 horsepower tractor, weighs about 1,500 pounds, instead of that bigger tractor right there, which is a $3,500 machine, or a 3,500 pound machine, one of the first differences you'll notice is lift capacity. So this tractor over here, this little guy, this guy can honestly lift a ton of weight. This thing will lift like 900, 800 pounds. It's amazing for a tractor of that size. I mean, it's not much bigger than one of these riding mowers in reality. And it can lift an immense amount of weight. I mean, it weighs 1,500 pounds, but you can lift almost 1,000 pounds of it. That's crazy. So this tractor that weighs over twice as much as that one will lift over twice the weight of that tractor and lift it twice as high, just because it's super heavy. And look at this thing. It is way bigger than this little riding mower. So that's the first thing we'll notice. Is lifting capacity is incredibly increased when you go up in the weight of tractor. The horsepower doesn't matter, it's the weight of the tractor. Okay, so when is horsepower more important than size? How about when we're pulling a box blade? Is horsepower really super important? The answer to that is yes and no. When we're doing ground engaging implements, let's say implements that don't have a PTO shaft you're spinning, getting started is important, but staying moving is the most important. So if we use the example of this, the tragedy with the bridge in Baltimore that got hit by that big cargo ship, the ship was not under power. It wasn't using its horsepower. It was just moving with its momentum, but it weighed so much that that momentum took it through the bridge. We'll see something similar with a ground engaging implement like a box blade. Once you get this thing moving, as long as you weigh enough, you'll keep it moving. So if this builds up with so much material in the back that that material kind of weighs more than the tractor, then the tractor's momentum will be brought down by the weight of the stuff. So if your tractor weighs more, that momentum will pull more, if that makes sense. Now, you do have to have power to get it started going, or if you're digging real hard in the ground. But really the most important thing is how much your machine weighs. So the horsepower will get you going, but that momentum is maintained by your weight. Now, if we're talking about PTO powered implements, like tillers, like brush cutters, like maybe if you're making hay, some of those are very, very horsepower intensive. Okay, so if we're using PTO powered stuff, maybe horsepower is important, especially if you're running a hay baler. But even with a rotary cutter, once you get those blades started spinning, they'll kind of maintain their own momentum until you come into really thick, heavy material. So horsepower can be important if we're running, horsepower intensive PTO stuff. Maybe you want to run a giant chipper. This is a 40 horse tractor. A 55 or 60 horse tractor will certainly have more power on that PTO to run a chipper. So there's where horsepower becomes important, is that twisting force off of the PTO. But I'll tell you right now, the most important thing is the weight of your machine, because more often than not, that weight is what's going to work in your favor. Even if you're pulling a disc takes lots of horsepower to run, but the weight of the tractor is more important to keep that disc running. Once you get started, you can put that disc lower in the ground and start pulling. maybe a plow. I could see a plow, like a 2-bottom plow or something. You know, if you got a bunch of plows in a row, having lots of horsepower is really important. But again, once you engage that ground, unless you have weight to go pull and flip that material and just keep your momentum going, horsepower means nothing. So if this thing had, let's say, 100 horsepower, eventually the wheels would just start spinning. The horsepower does me no good because the tractor doesn't have enough weight to put that power to the ground. So your weight is the most important thing, but horsepower is important when we're doing some twisting force with the PTO. I hope that is helpful. That's all I know. Horsepower versus weight, they kind of dovetail together, but if you have a choice, buy a heavier tractor instead of a more powerful tractor. If money's a consideration, work on the weight of your tractor in most all cases.